Hello, welcome to the conversation on New Central Television. I am Benga Aborowa. This is the program where we bring you up to speed with all the political happenings on the African continent.
And I am Rita Omodia. It's definitely a new week, and in Nigeria, the celebrations are on for the Democracy Day, and that's where our focus will be on today's edition of the conversation, as the country marks 30 years of democratic dispensation in Nigeria. We'll also be having focus on other situations in Mali.
Yes, and later on the show, we will move to Mali, where the country is going to have a constitutional referendum in a build-up to 2024 general elections.
Definitely a lot of situations. They were talking about democracy and elections. And you know, President Tinubu, I mean, this is going to be his first Democracy Day. And he said something. He said June 12th was one of the freest and fairest. I mean, this is the reason why we moved Democracy Day from May 29th to June 12th, to show that, okay, this election was every symbol of democracy. The question is, can they say this about the last election we just held, about his election that brought him to power?
And I'm happy you mentioned that, because as we speak right now, there's a presidential election petition tribunal that is ongoing, disputing the elections. But hopefully we'll be able to improve on our election process. And it's also instrumental that 30 years down the line, he was part of those that fought for Nigeria's democracy under the NADECO back then, with Professor Shoyinka and a host of other Nigerians. Some of them have passed, but it's nice that we acknowledge the sacrifices that the heroes made to, to give us this democracy. But the big question is, there's a word called dividend of democracy. How much dividend of democracy do Nigerians enjoy? And I'm sure
definitely waiting
we'll
for
get
this conversation.
into the meat of it.
Definitely we will. Meanwhile, in Mali, after a series of coups we saw in 2020, 2021, right now we're seeing constitutional referendum, and there's supposed to be an election in 2024. I do hope that it's not postponed, or the government or the military government does not give another excuse again to postpone elections. And
again, the big question is, democracy for the sake of democracy. Are they ripe enough? Is the environment stable to have a democratic government? Has it been stabilized enough to have elections? Because people, you look at a country like Libya, there's always, the international community is always drumming elections. But you need strong institutions. You need to make sure that there's no breakdown of law and order before these things come. It's not just rushing into a certain process because of for election's sake, yes.
Definitely, because at the end, if the country is not prepared for elections, or if things are not put in place, we'll end up going to external forces again, or the country is put into chaos. We definitely do not want that in Mali and also in Nigeria.
Exactly. So we'll get straight into the action. Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in his Democracy Day speech to Nigerians, praised Chief MKO Abiola, the winner of the 1993 presidential election, as a symbol of democracy. Tinubu acknowledged the hardships faced by Nigerians after the fuel subsidy removal, but promised to compensate them with investments in transportation, education, power supply, healthcare, and other public utilities. He defended the subsidy removal as a necessary step for the country.
President Tinubu also emphasized the importance of the rule of law and announced the harmonization of the retirement age for judicial officers. He commended the recent elections and encouraged those who disagree with the results to seek legal redress. Tinubu paid tribute to Abiola and other activists who fought for democracy. He urged Nigerians to cherish and protect democracy, promising to govern with fairness and respect for the rule of law. And joining us with this interesting conversation, we have Dr. Dayo Kayode, he's a public affairs analyst. He's joining us from Lagos, Nigeria. We also have Prince Kevin Fineface, the security and energy consultant, also a public good advocate, also join us from Lagos, Nigeria. Gentlemen, welcome to the conversation.
A pleasure.
Yes,
and happy Democracy Day.
Good evening, happy Democracy Day. And talking about the issue at hand, Dr. Kayode, I'm going to begin with you. The recognition of June 12 as Democracy Day, it holds immense significance in Nigeria's history, and I'm sure you would agree with that. Could you elaborate on the historical context? Let's go back in time and shed more light on the impact this decision has on the country's democratic development from May 29 to June 12, the historical context and the impact of this decision.
The issue of Democracy Day started during the open free election of Kashima Abiola who was unanimously voted for by Nigerians. But unfortunately, such was truncated by the then military head of state, Ibrahim Babangida. And Nigerians thought that for the first time in history, for us to come together as one to give our votes to a single individual, both Christians, Muslims, the North, the East, the South, the West, voting for an individual, it is worth celebrating. And that's exactly what has brought forth June 12th. But then, moving forward, since we have been moving from one government to the other, our leaders, have they been able to go in the philosophy that MKO Abiola was about to entrench in Nigeria in terms of democratic rule? Because when we're talking of democracy, I don't see Nigeria practicing democracy now, rather civil rule. Because democracy has been defined as government of the people, for the people, by the people. But these days, you find out that it's one cabal somewhere that dictates who gets what, where, and when. Rather than building strong institutions that Abiola promised, we have been building strong individuals. Instead of bringing the true dividends of democracy to the people, we have been bringing series of actions to the people, to the essence of even the political class, the leadership class, weaponizing poverty on the people, the infrastructural decay, the health facilities are gone, educational institution nowhere to go. A lot of deceit. Look at the deceit that we are having in our subsidy, the so-called petroleum subsidy. Just of recent, a few days ago, the GMD of NNPC even exposed the whole thing by itself through the direct purchase and direct supply concept. When you look at that particular concept, where is the subsidy there?
Okay, Dr. Kayode, it'll be nice to bring in your co-panelists into the conversation at this point.
To enjoy dividends of democracy.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kayode. I'd like to bring in Prince Kevin Fineface into the conversation at this point. Prince, the sacrifices made by Chief MKO Abiola and other democracy heroes were highlighted in President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's speech this morning. How do you think their bravery and dedication can inspire future generations of Nigerians to actively participate in the democratic process? And why is it that the younger generation don't know so much about the struggle from military rule to civilian rule? How can we get them to know this history, and also how can the sacrifices that these heroes of democracy made inspire them to be more active in the political process?
Okay, beautiful. Good evening one more time. And good evening, Dr. Kayode. It was making very valuable contributions as to the history. For your question, to respond to that, the outro is dependent on how much the government or we as a people desire to be told our history. I wonder if, I doubt, not even wonder, I doubt if history is well taught in our schools today. I remember vividly 1993 what transpired, because I was already an adult when that happened, and also participated in some measure during that process. Over that time to this date, you realize one thing, that history hasn't been taught in a manner with which the next generation should have known the sacrifice have been made by those who now call our heroes past. Nigeria suffers from the death of leadership. As a result of that, we've not really had leaders occupying positions of authority. What we've always had over the years are people that I would term to be misfit opportunists in positions of authority. And so when you find people who are not qualified occupying key positions or positions of authority, one of the first things you find them doing is to destroy structures. Because structures are destroyed, you now find poor service delivery that takes place. So today's youth haven't seen the need to be involved in our democratic processes. Why? Because they've not really seen the hope, desire. Let me give you this instance. Just the February 25th concluded elections, I can tell you of a fact that many youth who came out to vote for the first time will never want to come out to vote again. That was how we saw some measure of apathy during the March 11th, or March 18th rather, governorship elections, because they lost hope. The Nigerian states betrayed their trust. For the first time, many, at least more than 9 million persons that I can, by head knowledge, who came out to vote for the first time were truly betrayed. Now, for such kind of experience, what level of commitment, engagement you want to go about to encourage them to come vote the next time? One of the things I started doing when that happened was to be able to start talking to youth that, look, hey, understand this. The voter's card is the most powerful tool in a democracy. Now, being the most powerful tool in democracy, it's important every eligible voter understand that power and utilize that power effectively. How? Know that as an electorate, a registered electorate, to vote, that you are the kingmaker. It is what we need to teach the youth. Once they get to understand this importance, then it means they will be involved in the political processes. Without being involved in political processes, there's no way they can see the need, and there's no way they will make any effort to make a difference. And so democracy 30 years ago, democracy today, they're not two the same things, because 30 years ago, when it happened during the time of Abiola, we saw that the people were tired and they needed a change. They never really bothered about ethnicity or religion. But today, the last administration of the APC actually had further polarized the country, that we are so divided on ethnic and religious lines. If you just listen to what RFI said recently, the video that is going around, you begin to wonder if somebody wants to have faith in the country. I just hope that Mr. Ahmed Bola Tinubu would be able to look beyond the mistakes and do the right things, down that he has a short time, because we don't know what's going to happen with the tribunal. If the tribunal have turned the election, then of course a new person comes in. But for the time that he occupies the seat, the right decision needs to be taken. But he started on a very wrong note with the first subsidy, removal announcement on the day of his inaugural speech.
I want to bring Dr. Kayode into all of this, finally, because you mentioned something about 30 years ago and the fact that people were happy then due to the hope that, there will be a civilian administration, went from military, a situation where there was no freedom for the people, and people expected more. Now, President Tinubu said safeguarding and protecting democracy is crucial. At this point, we have so much resentment, so much disappointment. Some people even feel that probably we should go back to the military government, but he's saying we should safeguard democracy. Dr. Kayode, what do you think are the main challenges or threats that currently pose risk to Nigeria's democratic system?
For me, whether military or democracy, between you and me, it depends who is at the helm of affairs. The only difference is the mode of ascending to that leadership position. Now, coming to defending our democracy, number one, we have to build very strong institutions that will surpass individualism. Strong institutions like, for instance, INEC, whereby it will be free from all forms of government encumbrances. Talk of financial freedom, talk of administrative freedom, talk of management freedom, talk of even the way that the chairman evolves, the chairman of INEC evolves, to the extent that such an institution will be able to give us credible, fair, and transparent elections, different from what we just experienced in our last election. Secondly, the judiciary should be strengthened. to the extent that nobody, no matter how big you are in the society, will be able to influence decisions there. Now, aside from talking about building institutions, even the people themselves, they should be ready to come together and evolve the kind of leadership that will be able to give the people dividends of democracy. Because without the people coming together among themselves to bring up their leaders, it will be difficult. Aside from bringing up the leaders, human beings, we have very, very funny nature. To the extent that when we're in a particular position, when we are not well guided, we can do and undo. What am I saying? The people themselves must come up with their needs, aspirations, and expectations from whoever is going to assume leadership position. Because it is the people that knows where their shoe pinches. It should ask me to be the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria now. I'm an Ekiti man. How do you expect me to know what is happening in Gongola without those people in Gongola showing me where their shoe pinches? How do you expect me to know what is happening in Rivers without them showing me? So people must be able to aggregate the national needs, aspirations, and expectations.
Now, Dr. Kayode, from Tinubu's speech, do you think he's open to that? I mean, some people are saying he's preaching more of an open government. With all he has done so far, with the gestures, the speech that has happened, with what you're saying, do you think he will go with that line that you're saying?
You see, Rita, we do respect to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I listened to him. I read and read again on the social media and I've digested it. There is nothing he said today that is new from what we have been hearing before now. Nothing. Virtually nothing. I was expecting him. Okay, let me even go a little bit away from what people have been saying before now. People have been reading as their speeches before now. Let me also put in some action plans, some milestones from which people can begin to adjudge me. From which people can begin to adjudge me. After all those rhetorics, give us the action plans, give us some timelines, give us some milestones, so that I will know that, okay, let me give this man a benefit of the doubt. In another 1 month, he said this will have happened. In another 2 months, he said this will have happened. In another 100 days, he said this will have happened. Then I will now know that yes, there is a purpose for us, as he said, that we tighten our belt. But without that, why should I be tightening my belt when I know that, it's of no use?
Thank you, Dr. Kayode. I'd like to bring in Prince into the conversation. You did touch on the subject of subsidy briefly, but you didn't get the chance to elaborate on it when you were making your initial submissions. Now, Mr. President's speech acknowledged the burden placed on the masses due to the removal of the fuel subsidy. Can you elaborate on the potential long-term benefits and short-term challenges associated with this decision? Because you seem to feel, it's a negative decision. How can the government ensure that the sacrifices made by the Nigerian people results in tangible improvements in their lives?
Well, in the first place, subsidy removal is something that we all look forward to. We desired it because, that's like using the words of the President Muhammad Buhari, the immediate past president. He had said that there's nothing like subsidy, and you ask the question, who is subsidizing who? But the removal, the statement that was made by Mr. Bola Tinubu, during his inaugural speech, actually triggered so many things. Now he's saying Nigerians, he has seen the sufferings, they should endure that the sufferings will not go in vain, the sacrifices will be compensated as steps will be taken. When a leader or someone in leadership position makes statement that will be taken without putting practical things in place, it means that it will never come to pass or take a longer time. Many would have died before they can benefit from the subsidy removal. Why not wait until those steps are taken before you remove the subsidy? Why would there be a pronouncement made without concrete steps being taken to ensure we have an efficient, effective public transport system? If that is not put in place, partnering with those that already have established to ensure that the citizens don't get to go through that difficulty. I'll give you this instance. A staff of mine had called, the challenge she had in coming to the office, where she used to spend 1,600 to come to the office. She had to spend about 4,200 for it. So you tell me, how can she survive if I don't have that moral burden on my head? How can she survive coming to work every day for 24 days with the salary that she earns? So it means there has to be a salary adjustment. So immediately I sent her some money to help to augment our situation. But my revenue has not increased. But I've done that, and so you can imagine that situation that small, medium enterprises have to go through in order to cushion off the system while the government has not made any provision. No grants given, no provision being made. There's no concrete step being taken to ensure our rail system works effectively, and that this subsidy is going to be removed. We're going to see the practical reality in the refineries working, and so that we don't get to go swap our crude for fuel that is not even done effectively. And so when those things are not taken, the president is promising will be, I don't put my hope on the will be promises, because we've seen, like Kaido said, that over the years, those statements have been made and nothing concretely happened. We saw when 2012, we had the subsidy removal crisis. There were promises being made for refineries to work. The last administration also promised for refineries to work. Imagine Buhari was the Minister of Petroleum for 8 years, nothing done to ensure our refineries work effectively. Rather, we are losing millions to trillions now. And that tells you a lot. So there's no hope in that regard. But let me also say this, as a country, we need to begin to understand that we, the citizens, are supposed to be more responsible. Now, our responsibility has to come with our value systems, because I heard, Dr. Kaido talked about, those demands that we need from the judiciary, the institutionalized the judiciary, the INEC, and other institutions. Those people came from homes. They have religious backgrounds. But unfortunately, these backgrounds and the homes they came from have not really inculcated the right values and virtues in this when they get to public offices. And so what we've seen over the years, I said this before now, let me repeat it again. We've seen misfit opportunities in position of authority. Why? Because we've not really put out the structures that's required to ensure that our recruitment process is well looked into. The president of a country do not need to be a graduate, only need to show proof that they went to school, secondary school. And that is a disservice to the nation. That in itself is a very wrong recruitment process that is bedeviling us. And so any Tom, Dick, and Harry could just go galvanize some people, have some big heads that have the money, and they can influence the election. So our democracy needs to be improved upon. We need to begin to look at how to practice constitutional democracy, so that people who are qualified will be those who will be qualified, and they come with a social contract. Today, we have an election that is being contested heavily in the courts because of the anomalies that took place, because of the clear rape that took place on the 25th of February. And all of that can change where we are more participatory. And the more we can do that is the media need to come in to ensure that the public is well educated to know the importance of the voter's card. You know why? Because the voter's card is the most important tool in a democracy that ensures the legitimacy of the occupier of that office and the office itself. Without the voter's card, the occupier of the office does not even have any place to be there. I will not subscribe to military government, because there's no need for them to be there. What we rather need is to be able to have the right recruitment process and ensure merit-based recruitment is designed so that people who are qualified will be those who will only be given the opportunity to serve. And when they get there, they fail to serve, then we need for accountability. The likes of Babangida and the rest of the other coup plotters who succeeded in partaking in different coups are supposed to be punished as a nation. But today we call them elder statesmen. because we give them such appellations, it makes it difficult for morals to be upheld.
Definitely lots of interesting submissions, Fine Face. I mean, we could go on and on. You're raising very interesting topics on talks. Unfortunately, we would have to end this conversation to allow for future conversation. But definitely, we will continue all of this and make sure that Nigerians get the dividends of democracy. Thank you so much, Fine Face. And thank you also, Dr. Kayode, for joining us in this conversation.
Please sustain.
We'll go for a quick break. When we come back, we'll move straight to Mali, where there's been a early vote by the military men in a constitution referendum. We'll have discussions after the break. Join us again.